What is up, y'all? Sparty here. Yet again, recording on the V60 and during an actual nice and sunny day out here in Chaska, Minnesota. So it's actually been a long time coming because Minnesota's been cock teasing with good weather for so long, and we finally are getting it. So it's nice, but nonetheless, I want to talk Sony Xperia 1 Mark V. Because I haven't really made a community post about it. I made my last video with my hopes and, expectations. And, yeah, we'll get into it right here. So, obviously, it's going to have the 8 Gen 2, 12 gigs of RAM, 5,000 milliamp hour battery, same 4K 120 hertz display. They didn't really brag or boast about them making it brighter, which ultimately, for me, is fine because... honestly, since the 1 Mark III, I haven't been hearing any complaints from people saying the screen is too dim. And me having a 1 Mark III, obviously, for me, the screen is not too dim, so it's whatever. Still the same great 4K 120 hertz, 240 hertz touch sample rate with black frame insertion display. So to me, that's very much welcome, and I don't have any sort of issue with that. The cameras, you still have the same telephoto lens that you got from the 1 Mark IV, which is fine. I don't really feel like they need to do anything to, upgrade that, aside from the things that they did do, like make it to where all 3 cameras can actually record in 4K 60 and not just either 4K 30 or 4K 120. So to me, that's nice. Same ultra wide, so really no issues there either. The main thing, obviously, is the upgrade to the main sensor, their Exmor T sensor. And I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty as to what the hell that means. You can watch their 80-90 videos actually talking about that. You can watch a lot of content creators that actually do go out and take quality, make quality content with their devices and, take pictures and actually test out the technology. You can see what they have to say and what they have done with it to see that it is definitely an upgrade from what we had before with the 1 Mark III. We've basically been stagnant since the 1 Mark II, so that's ultimately nice. And the biggest things that you can take away from it, it is a larger sensor. It's not it's not the IMX989, so you're not going to get a 1-inch type sensor at all, which for me, I understand. What they pretty much want to do is what I'm guessing, leave that for the Pro I Mark II. And since they prioritize the Xperia 1 being about speed, they want to utilize this new sensor to show that off. And to me, that makes more sense because I don't think they have a IMX989 source to where it can do 4K 120. So, and since that's basically what Sony's been about, is the super fast video and all this other stuff, I'm totally fine with them creating an entirely new sensor just so that you're not stuck with the same sensor you've had since essentially the 1 Mark II. So that's fine with me. It is technically a 52 megapixel sensor, but realistically it uses 48 megapixels of that entire sensor, but bends down to 12. It's very weird. But basically, from what I've seen so far, the images are definitely very nice, and they also allow you to use, not edit, but put on certain looks before you even take the picture and stuff like that. And that stuff is actually very much welcome for me personally. More stuff to make your pictures stand out to me is always nice. So I'm not going to sit here and complain about that. Also in video, the overall camera experience itself, they actually make it to where they actually have it to where the user interface does react to you putting the phone in portrait mode. So you put the phone in portrait, it'll give you a regular ass like camera software shutter button, but you could obviously you can still use the hardware one, but it's something that people have been complaining about for a long time, is that the camera app looks intimidating. And to be fair, it obviously does, but to me, if you're willing to shell out that much money for a Sony, you should at least be willing to learn what the hell their camera software has to offer. So to me, that's nice. The front-facing camera can shoot in 4K 60. So to all you people that want to use the worst sensor on the phone to record vlogs, you can do that and have it be in pretty good quality. There's no more LED notification light, which for me is honestly fine. They no longer have the time of flight sensor on the back. So, what's right above the telephoto sensor right there on the One Mark III and the One Mark II, you no longer have that. So for me, honestly, that's fine too. I don't really care. If they've made it to where their software their autofocus can actually do it without needing that sort of hardware, I'm totally fine with it. And from what I've seen so far, it's either on par or better, so there's really no loss there. Plus, with the Xperia 5s, they never really put that hardware on there either, so they probably were like, you know what, it's really no point. And there probably wasn't enough space when they decided to put in this new sensor, so, whatever, ultimately. Other things that are nice, hold on. Other things that are nice, sorry if you hear the lawnmower in the background, but other things, now that it's farther away from me, I'm going to attempt to do this, but sorry. S-Cinetone for mobile. S-Cinetone for mobile. So they've brought their video look, for lack of a better word, from their professional cameras, their cinema grade cameras and whatnot, down to the Xperia. So this is actually very nice. If you watch a lot of content creators that utilize Sony cameras for their content, like Philip Bloom and all these other ones, Sony has a distinct look, and from what I've seen so far, it makes it to where you don't necessarily have to degrade the footage recording to get a good look out of the camera, but also it makes it to where you can do that and not necessarily have any sort of issues. So that's nice, and I honestly do appreciate that. One thing that is very nice is they finally brought focus peaking over. Something that really does piss me off with the One Mark III is that there's no focus peaking. And I would hope that they would at least bring that to the One Mark III. It's software. I don't see why they wouldn't, but it's Sony, so they probably won't. So who knows, honestly. I'm not necessarily that bent out of shape about it, so it's whatever. Other things is going down from 512 gig base storage to 256, which is kind of unfortunate, because I do like the fact that I have 512 gigs of internal storage on my One Mark III, but on the upside, it also makes it to where the phone is $200 cheaper than the One Mark IV. So, true cost-benefit analysis, it's something that you can take into consideration for yourself, I suppose. But for me personally, I do feel like ultimately that's not that big of a drawback, especially since you still have SD card support. So that's something that's very nice. One thing I do hope, and one thing they never even brought up, is that you can use the full width of the sensor, the full resolution of the sensor. I don't think you can, but it would be nice to be able to do that, just for the people that want to utilize the full resolution of that sensor, say to zoom into particular parts of your subject and whatnot. It would be nice to see that, and it would just be nice to have, honestly. What else? A lot of people are sitting here acting as if Sony sticking with, what for all intents and purposes is still a 12 megapixel sensor is a bad thing. But it's hilarious that a lot of these people are saying this, but aren't saying the exact same thing about Samsung, when sure, they advertise 200 megapixels, but in reality, you're only using 12 megapixels. So, plus also it isn't like, Google with the Pixel 7 Pro where they were like 48 meg. I don't know how big for the main sensor. I think it's 50 megapixels. 50 megapixel main sensor on the Pixel 7 Pro. But then you can't even utilize the full resolution of the sensor at all. So what is the point of it's essentially false advertising? Like, sure, the hardware is there, but Google doesn't allow you to use it. And I'll give Sony at least one thing. At least they're telling you this is how much of the sensor this phone realistically uses, and this is what you should expect. Whereas these other manufacturers don't even say that. Xiaomi, IMX 989, they say 50 megapixel sensor. They don't tell you that it just uses 12 megapixels. Samsung, 108 megapixel, 200 megapixel sensor. You only get to use in auto mode, unless you switch out of it, you only get to use like fucking 12 megapixels. So realistically, what is the difference for the vast majority of people that aren't going to go into the settings and look for a 108 megapixel mode or a 200 megapixel mode or 50 megapixel mode? Sure, for people like me, that's fine. I look and actually go into the mode myself. That's what I do a lot more on the V60s. I use the 64 megapixel mode. But at least with the V60, it's been down to 16. So even its base mode has more resolution than just a lot of phones today. It's kind of crazy. And it is noticeable. You're like, oh, it's not noticeable. Nah, it's noticeable. It really is. I'm not saying it's a deal breaker, no. But there are other things about other, camera platforms that you can say can do better than the V60. But if we're going to talk about raw megapixel count and what the images come out as in terms of like resolution, the V60 shots come out noticeably sharper than a 1 Mark III, than my S21 Ultra that I had back when I first got the V60, and a lot of other phones, which is very much insane to me, but whatever. Honestly, what I kind of expect from this, because I am going to get the phone, it's going to come out at $1,400, is I expect everything that is a pain point, and obviously it still has the headphone jack, but what I'm really expecting from this is to get a significant upgrade from the 1 Mark III. The 1 Mark IV didn't really feel like enough of an upgrade for me to go to it from the 1 Mark III. And I obviously have the sticking point on here where my fingerprint sensor now is just not working. Like sometimes I'll reset it and it'll decide, oh, I want to work now. It'll work once or twice and then stop. So I really hope that's fixed. But overall, I really feel like Sony kind of knocked it out of the park with this one, at least initially. Obviously, I don't know anything else about the phone, but overall, I feel like they've done a very good job at I guess, 2-year upgrade cycle for me. And honestly, we'll see what happens here. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys feel about this. How do you want the Xperia 1 Mark V? Does it entice you in any sort of way? Are there any sort of disappointments? Let me know in the comment section below. This is Sparta. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. Hope you guys have a wonderful, it's Monday, whatever time of day it is in the area. Like the video if you like it, share with people that are interested in this sort of content, and have a good one.